In this video, I'm going to show you how you take a story prompt, which is basically a 1 or 2 sentence story idea, and turn it into a full-fledged story. So take the story prompt and then flesh it out and make a full-fledged story out of it. And I'm going to use a story prompt from this book, which is Story Prompts for Nonprofits. It's got over 900 different story prompts in it. It's pretty comprehensive. It's free. This book is free. You can go ahead and download it. I have left a link down below, or you can purchase the spiral bound copy of the book. It's a great resource if you're trying to look for stories to tell for fundraising, for reporting back to donors, for thanking donors, for your events. Anyway, 900 plus story prompts for you. Totally worth the download. And then in today's video, I'm going to show you how you take a story prompt there and turn it into a story. And we're going to do that using this worksheet. Now this worksheet, I've also left a link down below to walk you through how to take a story prompt and turn it into a story. But this video, I'm just going to walk you through this worksheet. So let's go ahead and just get started. All right, so after you've downloaded the worksheet, go ahead and open it up. And the first thing you'll see is that this worksheet has 6 different sections. We have the gathering raw materials section. We have the example raw materials. We have the general story template, an example story, and then a checklist for editing and polishing a story, and then a couple other resources. So the first part here is just gathering the raw materials. There are 9 different ways or 9 different things to do to gather the materials for your story. I'm not going to go through them here in detail because we will also be going through this again when I show you what the raw materials I've picked are. So the first one is choose a story prompt. Second one, define the job of the story so that you know basically how you want your audience to think, feel, or do after you've told them the story. You want to identify your audience and communication channel. So who are you going to be telling the story to, and how are you going to be doing it? Also, we're going to need to choose the main character, beneficiary. We're going to identify the problem or the obstacle that the beneficiary or the main character has in the story. We need to gather some details about the situation, and then define the solution to the problem with any key details. And then you want to craft a call to action at the end of the story so that your audience knows what you want them to do. And then the 9th thing is to edit and polish your story. Okay, so let's go to section 2 where I have already filled this out with the different raw materials that we're going to use to build a story, the example story. So choosing a story prompt. The prompt that I chose is describe a program that has helped to provide arts programming for veterans. And the job of the story is to inspire readers to support the Arts for Warriors program and donate to help veterans heal through art. The audience I'm going to be telling this to are veterans, their families, and supporters of the arts, because these are the types of people that are going to support this program. And then the communication channel, I'd like to write a story that I can use for social media, for direct mail, and also something that I can use for in-person events. And then I'm going to choose the main character. And for this particular story, I'm going to choose Sarah. She's a retired veteran struggling with PTSD and anxiety after returning from active duty. And the main problem that she has is she's facing emotional challenges and lacks a healthy outlet to express her feelings, which impact her overall well-being. And then in 6, we're going to talk about the details. Sarah joined the military to serve her country, but the traumatic experiences she endured during her service left her emotionally scarred. She battles nightmares, anxiety attacks, and a sense of isolation, struggling to reintegrate into civilian life. Now let's define the solution. The Arts for Warriors program provides therapeutic art workshops and a supportive community for veterans like Sarah. Through painting, drawing, and other artistic activities, veterans can express their emotions and build connections and find healing. The call to action is Will you help a veteran who feels isolated and alone by donating $50 to give them a month's worth of art classes? And then we'll go ahead and edit and polish the story. Okay, so here is a general story template. You can use this as a starting point, but feel free to customize each section based on the specific story you want to craft, where you want to tell it, whether it's through the mail, whether it's through an event or social media. Add vivid details, emotional language, and unique elements that make your story compelling and relatable to your audience. So the first thing we want to do is write an opening paragraph. This is going to set the stage and introduce the protagonist or the context of the story. And then we'll do a hook because we want to capture that person's attention, the reader's attention, with a compelling statement or question or some type of mystery so that they want to continue reading or listening to our story. And then we'll provide some background information. We'll introduce the conflict. And then once we do that, we'll need to do the rising action, keep it more, we want to build in the story. We want to build the tension in the story. And then we'll have the turning point, which is basically the pivotal moment where life changes for our protagonist, our beneficiary. Then we have the climax, which is basically the intense or the most critical point of the story where the conflict reaches its point. It's that change. And then we have the resolution, where we explain how the conflict is resolved or gets addressed. And then we have the conclusion, where we reflect on the impact of the protagonist's journey or provide a key takeaway. And then here's where we bring in the call to action, so our audience knows what we expect from them, what we want them to do. Okay, so let me go up here for a moment. We're going to take all of this stuff right here, and we're going to put it into this template. And here's what we come up with. Here's section 4, our example story. Let me go ahead and just read the story for you. I'll show you which part of the template each part of the story is, and then we'll go from there. I want to share a story that has touched my heart deeply. It's about Sarah, a retired veteran who had an extremely rough time adjusting to civilian life. This is the opening paragraph. When Sarah returned from her years of service, she had many scars, some physical, many emotional. Memories of harrowing battles and fallen comrades haunted her days and tormented her nights. Anxiety and nightmares gripped her, leaving her sleepless and on edge. This is the hook, because we want to know what's going to happen with her. Sarah felt trapped in a constant struggle, battling not only the invisible wounds of war, but also the physical pain that clung to her body. This is just a little bit more background information on her. But the greatest struggle for Sarah was the isolation she felt. This is the conflict. This is the main conflict that the story is about. The trauma from her experiences seemed too heavy to share, and she longed for understanding and connection. The civilian world seemed cold, distant, and indifferent. Nobody understood the depth of her pain. So here's where we got the rising action. Then Sarah found a glimmer of hope. She found Art for Warriors, an organization dedicated to supporting veterans like her. Surrounded by fellow veterans who shared similar battles, she discovered a community of unwavering support and empathy. They became her lifeline, a collective embrace that understood the depths of her struggles. This is the turning point where things in her life start to change. Within this community, Sarah went on a journey of transformation through art therapy. As she picked up a paintbrush, she found a way to express the turmoil in her soul. Each stroke she made on the canvas became a release. This is the climax. Through her art, Sarah confronted the demons that haunted her. As she painted, a renewed sense of purpose and self-discovery emerged, guiding her out of the darkest corners of her mind. Here's the resolution. And now let's go to the conclusion. Through this art journey, Sarah has become calmer, and she can sleep peacefully through the night. Sarah told me the other day that she feels like the world is much warmer and friendlier than it used to be. In fact, Sarah has been helped so much through the Arts for Warriors program that she is starting to mentor other veterans who need help. Her courage and determination have inspired other veterans. It shows them that healing is possible and they are not alone in their struggles. Now, we go to the call to action. Will you help a veteran who feels isolated and alone by donating $50 to give them a month's worth of healing classes? Now that you have your story and your call to action, it's time to check it over. Make sure that it's a good story. So I've included a checklist here. Let's go through that. So here in section 5, we have the checklist for editing and polishing your story. You want to make sure your story is clear, that people understand what the story is about from the first paragraph to the last paragraph. You want to make sure that it has emotions in it. You also want to make sure that it's authentic and it doesn't deviate from Sarah. It honors Sarah or your main character. You want to trim the excess. This is very common where stories get bloated with extra details that don't move the story forward, or it has irrelevant details in it. So you want to make sure that your story has as many details in it that it needs, but no more than what it needs. And 5, you want to make sure that it has a compelling flow and it stays that way through beginning to the end so that people, once they get into your story, want to make it all the way to the end. And then 6, and this is where I really kind of fall short, and that's proofreading for errors. So it's really important to get somebody else who's good at this to look over your story, whether it's printed on social media or it's a speech that you're about to give at an event. And then here in 7, you want to make sure that you read it aloud. This is so important. Seek feedback with the people that you trust so that you know whether or not you're hitting the marks that you need to with your story. Maintain consistency. You want to make sure that the overall messaging is correct and in line with your nonprofit, what you're trying to accomplish. And the 10, test the emotional response. You want to make sure that this is getting you the emotional response that you need. And then let me just give you a couple other resources, because this one right here, I want you, this is not even optional. I want you to go watch this video, because this video will show you how you can take a story like this one with Sarah and how you would alter it if you're asking for money or you're reporting back to donors on what their gift did, or you're thanking donors. Those are 3 completely different ways that you would tell this story, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the story. So I highly, highly, highly suggest that you go watch that video. Also, we'll be putting up more videos on the YouTube channel, so please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd like to become really good at telling stories and knowing what types of stories to tell where and when, for instance, how do you tell a major donor story? Because that differs from how you would tell a mass donor story. How would you tell a story to a grant maker? That also is different. And then, do you tell them differently at this time of the year than you would in this time of the year? So there are so many different aspects of storytelling that you will learn at the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference that it will be worth your while, because it's all about, for us at the conference, it's all about fundraising, how you turn stories into donations, and then how do you honor your beneficiaries and how do you honor your donors in this whole process? It really comes down to storytelling and the stories that you tell. So I hope to see you at this Nonprofit Storytelling Conference, and I hope you enjoyed this video, hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.